I will call this meeting to order at 7:06 p.m. and you can take it away.
Okay, in accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, the general law, chapter 30A, section 20, relating to the 2020 novel coronavirus outbreak emergency, the May 12, 2020 at 7 p.m. public meeting of the Norfolk Recreation Commission shall be physically closed to the public to avoid group congregation. Alternative public access to this meeting shall be utilizing the Zoom virtual meeting software, zoom.us, for remote access. This application will allow users to view the meeting and send comment or question to the chair via chat function. Submitted text comments, questions may be read into the record at appropriate points in the meeting if they are in line with the town's public comment policy. The meeting shall be recorded for future rebroadcast by the Norfolk Community Television. Join Zoom meeting, https://us0.us/j/us/81211059648.
Okay, perfect.
Done.
All right, so firstly, so we haven't met in a while, so welcome to everyone in the first ever Recreation Commission Zoom meeting. I know we haven't met in a while, but I was really just trying to give people some time to kind of figure out the new routine, deal with the things that need to be dealt with, and not kind of bog anyone down with recreation matters. But there's a lot that's happened, a lot that we need to discuss, so it's time that we meet again. And I think I'm going to suggest we meet relatively soon again, just to continue on and kind of deal with some of the backlog that we have to deal with. But I figured this meeting would be best suited to focus on kind of the COVID-19 and how that has affected recreation and kind of all the different aspects that brings. So the first few items, I just want to review and the February meeting minutes. Did anyone have any questions or clarifications on that?
Nope.
Okay, so I will move to accept the Recreation Commission meeting minutes for February 11th, 2020 as noted currently. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right,
Second.
got the second. Any discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. That passes unanimously. So I see that we have a couple members of the public joining us, so welcome. So we have at this point on the agenda an opportunity for you to speak and say anything you'd like to the commission. So if you'd like to introduce yourselves and say something, that would be your time, or obviously later on, if there's something you want to interject, please feel free. Okay, so I'm going to take that as that we are content the way we are for the time being. All right, so the first thing to discuss that I have on here is what I've called status updates and plans going forward. So since the last time we met, needless to say, we've kind of had our world turned upside down on us, and lots of things have happened that we didn't expect. And I thought this would be a good opportunity for us to sit down, discuss what we feel comfortable with as a commission, and kind of discuss where we're at now and where we would like to go moving forward. So Ann, do you kind of want to just give us a rundown of kind of our status on the programming and the fields, and then the kind of all of our other facilities for the time being?
Sure. So let's start with programming. So we were really just about to publish our brochure right when everything really hit. So the, I guess the good news is that we didn't publish a brochure right away. We held off. But since then, all of our spring programs, for the most part, work were canceled. You know, school was canceled. Everything was canceled. All spring sports were canceled. What we have held, we did the virtual town-wide scavenger hunt. We had, I think, about 69 families participate. Maybe Brendan can chime in. His family participated. It seemed like families had a lot of fun. We had a lot of participation. It was, you know, it was very creative. The kids, you know, kids and families. I mean, and we had all ages participating, which was really nice to see. And so, you know, we did have that involvement. We did have, as far as virtual programs going, I mean, clearly not anywhere near what we usually hold, but Practicing Preschool, which is a very popular program, our preschool teachers created story times and posted those and also sent individual messages to each individual child, sort of wrapping up the year, because for that age group, you know, closure is really important. So they did that for every child in that program. We also were just holding Mommy Music and Me virtual classes. So finishing out that year. So we've held 2 of those. There'll be 1 more coming up. So we're doing that as well. We held a Home Alone virtual program. People paid for that, but honestly, people are not so comfortable paying for virtual programs. They're happy to join programs that don't cost anything, or maybe not much. I'm, you know, my kids are grown, so I don't know, but I'm guessing people are perhaps a little tired of doing virtual things online. I'm just a wild guess. But we certainly have been doing some things virtually. You know, but other than that, we're, you know, fields are closed, our programming is closed. As far as summer programming goes, we don't know where we stand yet. We are having department head meetings. We were having department head meetings every month. We are having them more often. We had one last week. And in that meeting, the superintendent of KP joins us, as well as Ingrid Alardi. And Ingrid said that she is expecting to hear in a couple of weeks regarding, from the Department of Education, regarding the use of schools in the summer. They need to hear because they have special ed programs in the summer. So what that will look like for our summer programs, we have to take the lead from that. And if we can use the school, what our programs will look like, again, we'll have to figure that out. So we're really right now in a holding pattern for that.
Okay, so kind of what I wanted to talk about at this meeting. So as Ann said, everything's closed. We're doing some virtual programming. We're coming up to the 18th, which the governor has laid out as the next milestone date where we're going to reevaluate the stay-at-home policies. And obviously he announced this 4-phase kind of reopening plan with different milestones. Not a whole lot of detail yet, and I don't think we're going to get much more of that until next week. But I wanted to try to start to get a general sense of all of you, what your feelings are about what we should do. So here's my fear. I've seen some states that are more in line with our numbers that have put out their plans and the details of their plans and have said, until we get a vaccine, we're not going to have gatherings of more than 50 people. And that's that. And I know at some point we'll get some guidance on this from the state on what that means for fields, what that means for playgrounds. But I think it's going to be wise for us, not to be caught off guard, not to be caught by surprise if that happens. And we should have a coherent plan ready to go on how we feel that we can put out there to the public, into the leagues, about what we're going to be doing. And I know you've seen some of the emails we've gotten. Some people are upset, and some people want us to have the fields wide open. And obviously some people are upset when there's even one person on the field. So I kind of just wanted to start getting everyone's general senses and then general feelings and sense, and then I can kind of throw in what I think and we can go from there. So what are your thoughts?
Well, if I go first, my thinking is literally why take the risk? Well, my internet connection is unstable at some point, but raise your hand if I get choppy or something like that.
No.
This is in general for fun. I mean, yes, we need to do exercise, and yes, we need to get people out and do that stuff, but I think we should be leading the charge of, we need to take this seriously. And so I'm like, if we keep things closed, we wait till everybody else gets open, get the important stuff open, get the vital stuff open, and then we talk about whether or not we're gonna open up. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, so basically, my point of view is, whatever the state says, we just had to be prepared. I think also we need to communicate prior to the governor's announcement to let people know that we're just going to follow suit with whatever the government says, just in case, to your point, Will, you're getting a wide spectrum of people saying, why aren't we out in the fields, to the other ones and saying, how dare you have somebody out there? And it's not like going to have police detail 24/7 on these places. They got more important things to do. But I think communicating that we're going to follow suit to what the Commonwealth has to say, that will help people know, instead of saying, oh, what if, like, well, let me just go out there today and see what happens. So that's my 2 cents.
Liza, do you have anything?
So I can add that.
Oop. Is Ann gone now?
No, she's there. She's just low
Can you
connection.
hear her?
No, she's got a low connection.
Oh.
It's showing up on.
Well, I mean, my opinion is we need to follow what the state's advising. Anybody on the fields for organized sports can't happen, obviously. Fields should stay closed. And I said people, I mean, I can see it. People just go and walk, social distance, and go home. But I wouldn't open them because then it'll be a free-for-all.
Right. So I'm kind of getting the sense, and listening to what people have told us, is that they're a little confused as to why things are the way they are. So obviously, as you guys know, the tennis courts are open, the walking loop is open, but nothing else is. And obviously, you saw the email from I think it was Jill Lawrence, who wanted the fields open, and someone else had reached out to me through another channel that was upset that the police had come up to them. They were playing catch on the field with their son, and they got thrown off the field by the police, which I don't know why the police were there monitoring that, but
Where was it at Freeman?
I think it was at Freeman. I don't know who it was.
It was probably because they've been looking for that supposed gunman that's been out on the loose. They've been circling around.
It may have been. So it's getting to the point where, I've had some people reach out to me and really, kind of like, I can't believe you have the police off the fields, which it's not our intention. So I think we need to have, like you guys said, clearly articulate what we're following. We're following state guidelines. The one thing I wanted to kind of ask everyone about and get your opinion on, I know you were the one that brought it up, was fields by appointment for limited uses. Obviously, we have concern about people from other towns coming in. We have concerns about get too large of gatherings, but if it gets to the point where we're dragging on into July, or we're dragging into June, we're dragging into August, especially when the weather gets nicer, I feel like people are going to start getting upset that they can't even go out and play catch. So I think it's something we should consider. It might have to be the way we go even for the next year until there's a vaccine and until we move on to that final phase that the governor is talking about, where we're kind of back to the new normal, as they call it.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, so I typed that, sorry, only because I didn't think you could hear me. And I typed it because one of the things that we do have to be careful about is favoritism. If the fields are closed, if they're public fields and they're closed, they do need to be closed to everyone. And I have to say, I mean, it's hard. I mean, it's a hard situation. I do meet with the other directors in the Metro West area, and all the fields are closed in this area. Last Thursday, the director from Natick was on our Zoom meeting, and they had their fields open, and they had 60 people on their soccer field, not from Natick. The Board of Health shut them down. And that's one of the concerns. Is sort of the timing of the opening of the fields. And if we open fields, like formally open fields, then they're open, again, they're public fields. So if they're open to everyone. And that could be a very difficult thing to manage. And all the work that have gone into the fields, by the way, the fields look really good. And I don't think it's Norfolk, it's not the Norfolk people that will be using the fields, it's people from everywhere else, if we open fields any earlier than anyone else. So I think and this was discussed as, first off, we do need to take the lead from the state. I don't think, and to Mark's point, I mean, we do need to be careful. I mean, this, everyone does have different, there are definitely different points of view for this virus. But today I did ask a group, there were probably 7 or 8 guys playing soccer. They were sharing about 12 or 15 balls. They were absolutely not social distancing. And there were several of them. And, and I always ask nicely, but I say, this isn't, I'm not asking you to leave because I don't want you playing soccer. I'm asking you to leave because the fields are closed, because of a public health risk. And because they're public fields, they need to be closed to everyone. And, everyone's nice about it. I mean, it's not, it's a very hard situation to be in. And they're, the grass is green and the fields are beautiful, and it's exactly when I usually want everyone out there playing. It's, and you can't see the virus, but, is it really worth it? I mean, is it really worth it?
Right. No, I agree. And I think we're all on the same page at this point in time. I guess what I'm more getting at is let's say the state comes out May 18th, which I don't think they're going to do, and says fields can open on this day. I don't think any of us would feel comfortable just ripping those signs off the field and saying the fields are open, because everyone's going to go there. There's going to be.
Well, I was actually going to reach out to Jeff Plimpton and see what he might be doing, and see if there was a way that we could, if we're not running programs, I am willing, I am, I will monitor fields. I'll go out there. I don't mind raking. I have been raking baseball fields because there are people using the fields and they're leaving them a mess. So I mean, I have a rake in my car. I'm willing to do, I don't want to say I'm willing to do it. I'm happy to do it. If it can be done in a way that, we can set up a soccer goal and have people practice and do it in a way that people are social distancing, and I'm open to suggestions. I am open to suggestions.
Yeah, I just think we're going to need to.
I don't want it to be a free for all. That just scares me.
I agree, and I'm afraid of, even when the state says it's okay, that I don't think it's going to be wise for us to just let it be a free for all. So that's kind of more the discussion I wanted to have, is what do we think at that point in time when it's okay to open the fields by all standards? What are we going to want to do to control that flow and make sure that we're still being safe, even as this all goes on?
No
Well, I
groups
didn't.
of 10 or more. No organized sports.
I actually.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I didn't even think about what you said, Anne, in terms of if we open and nobody else does, we're going to get swamped. If we don't open and one other person does, we're going to get swamped. We literally can't make a decision about what we're going to do until we've talked to everybody else around us to make sure that no one group is going to, one city's rec department is going to get swamped by this. I think it has to be a higher level discussion where we're talking to the rest of them, like you said, Anne, that you're talking to the other rec departments in the area.
Yeah, I think that's actually a great point. Again, I know a lot of like the state reopenings have been done regionally, and maybe that's something that we aim to do, is kind of coordinate or try to start some coordination with these other towns, and everything's kind of moving at once, so we don't get that. I think that's a great idea.
And maybe when the state does say okay, and we tell baseball, okay, it's time to put your batting cages up. Because that's, the they're batting cages, right? You might call it at Pond Street.
Yeah, Pond Street and Freeman Kennedy, obviously baseball, waited until they get the okay. As of right now, they're in the storage.
Well, I mean, because the fields are closed, so we couldn't have, but when the state opens, I mean, that's a great way to have, 2 people playing, and then, we could say you have to have gloves, you have to have disinfectant or whatever, again, whatever, or it has to be family members. But a lot of times I think in batting cages, it is family members. Is that not a correct assumption?
For organized, no, but for mom and dads and kids, yes. But that's
I mean, it can be, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that organized sports are going to be allowed for a while. I'm just not. I think
I agree.
I think that the fields may open, but I think that you can't play sports in social distance, even baseball. I mean,
Right.
I can't see that even being able to happen. So again, I think these are all things that we're going to have to keep an eye on in terms of limiting, and as we go forward, because I don't think we can keep them closed for a year, but we can limit the flow and come up with some restrictions and some reasonable actions that we can have people use them safely with a small group or with families, probably.
And again, having families use them, or maybe working with the coaches at the high school and trying to come up with, drills that that have social distancing, like built into the drills.
Like what?
I wouldn't even go that deep with this. I think would even consider the fact of whatever the Commonwealth says that would give us the ability to open is they're going to be, the question is, all these both soccer, softball, baseball are going to ask, what can we do?
Right.
And what will we allow them to do is probably, questions that we may want to throw out there for next month, because if things start to change, everyone's talking about July, that, things are going to open up even more. I can see everyone trying to ask to try to do something organized in July if the fields are available. So just something to ponder.
Yeah, I think that's my point. We don't have to come to any conclusion now, but I wanted everyone to kind of start thinking about what we're comfortable with, because that ultimately is going to fall into our court. I have a feeling that the state guidelines are not going to be as clear as we want them to be. I don't think they have been to this point. So just something to start thinking about, I suppose. I think we're all in agreement with where we're at now. But I just think once we start opening out more, where it's going to fall more on us to determine what isn't allowed on our own fields. So just something to think about. Does anyone else have anything to add to that? I know, Charlie, I just see you came in. We were talking about the field status. Did you have anything you wanted to say?
You're on mute, Charlie. Charlie, you're on mute.
Sorry for the delay. We had a family social distancing birthday party, and you know how that goes these days. But no, Ann and I had a chance to connect on this, and I know that we've chatted a little bit. I think we stay the course, and just in I specifically work in public health data, and I know some of the cities across the United States that have been trying, in some of the smaller towns, some of the issues have been more problematic in the smaller towns compared to the larger cities, because the larger cities have the police force to really monitor the field activities. So, to Ann's point earlier, when we were conversing via email, I think we're in a much better position if we just stay the course and just wait to hear.
So Trevor's asking what the states have done with their parks and recreation. It might be a framework for Norfolk or Mass as a whole. I think that, so I can address what national recreation, the national parks and recreation trails everywhere have, and in Norfolk and in Massachusetts have not closed. Some, actually Audubon chose to close their trails, like Stony Brook did. So that has not changed. But I think that there are states that are opening that have not had the same outcomes with COVID-19 that Massachusetts has had, and are not in the same place. So I don't know that, I think that Norfolk needs to take the lead, in my opinion, from our government and not other governments at this point in time.
Yeah, so I kind of agree with the conclusion we've come to. I say we stay the course and just keep in mind that we're probably going to have to come up with some sort of long-term, I don't know if framework is the right word, but plan as to what we're going to allow and not allow. And I don't think we need it right now. I think the state will kind of hold our hand with that at some point, but it's just something to think about, because it's going to be incumbent upon us to limit what's going on the fields. So the next item, so that kind of, I would say, covers our other facilities as well, would be the advertising. Ann, did you want to talk at all about the email that we got?
Tom Antonellis reached out to Recreation and asked about the advertising, the banners at Pond Street, and asked about supporting small businesses and having them face the road. I think that knowing that, we did not move forward with the banners because the banners being advertising do not support the fields, they support the general fund. But if that's something that Recreation wants to consider, whether it be now or in the future, we could, the town is looking for money, so the money would go to the general fund, but we would still need to purchased the banner. He was asking if they could be put along the fence so it could be facing outside. Facing the road.
Is he talking on the road or like just inside the facility?
Well, they would have to be on a fence, so.
Yeah, there's only one fence that would do that, and that's over by one of the soccer fields, right?
Well, there's that fence. They could really go, they could go along there's the Babe Ruth field faces out. So, there's
Babe Ruth Field, no, that's the backstop though, and you don't want that. You don't want stuff back there. And then no one's going to see it anyways because it's below street level.
Right. It's not great. There's that. There's the parking lot. There's field A with the soccer field, and that's, it's through some trees. There's field B, that's the parking lot. That's a little bit clearer. It's not ideal, but there's even the Little League field. There's a 6-foot fence there that's facing out. I think that's what he's saying, so it's versus inside a field. But you don't have to decide now. It's something to think about.
If it's something that can feasibly be done, and there's still businesses that are giving, and I see no problem helping them out.
Again, I run out of time. I'll have more time, so maybe I can do it. I'm willing to do it. I don't know if small businesses are going to be in the position to give, but the money will go back to the general fund. But if you want me to do it and I have time, I'm happy to reach out to those companies again.
Yeah, if you have time, go ahead. I think it's great.
The only thing that I would have to add in here is, and maybe opposed to going right in with the hard ask, we take the pulse of these smaller businesses and kind of get a better assessment of where they are right now and what they have been encountering during this time, so we don't burn potential bridges later down the road or in the future when things return to whatever the new normal looks like. We certainly don't want to go, in with just a hard ask and, not try to cultivate that relationship. So if you want to develop a list, and maybe perhaps we can look at the list and see who would be willing to volunteer to help with that list and calling and doing a check-in and talking about the opportunity, and maybe the opportunity doesn't fit their timing right now, but it could be later down the road in the near future. We can certainly look at it at that perspective too. Because the only thing that I'm thinking is that if this order or these orders continue to stay and activities do not resume to what used to be, they may be thinking like, why are you even coming to me right now about this?
Yeah.
So if you want, I'm happy to look at the list and we can certainly kind of work through that. I just want to be mindful of everything that a lot of these businesses and local companies are going through.
I hear you.
And
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess what I was saying was if someone approaches us and it wants to do it, I say we could go for it, but I wouldn't make any asks right now at all. I don't even think, I know we've talked about the banner program in previous meeting. I wouldn't even start, if someone approaches us like Tom did and wants to sponsor us, great, or sponsor sure, but I don't think now's the time to ask any business.
So the tricky thing is it goes to the general fund. It doesn't go to the operating budget. It goes to the general fund, which means that it will go to free cash, will eventually go to free cash, which means it'll go to special projects. So you have no idea what it will go for at some point. It certainly won't go to recreation because recreation never asked for free cash.
Right. So I don't even think it's worth, dealing with here with that. We've discussed this before in some ways. We can work with baseball, softball.
Yeah, I almost think that that would be the better route.
Well, I think so.
Support.
I've pulled back because I don't feel like now's the time to address the banner program. But but my point was just if someone approaches us and wants to do it, I see no reason why we can't allow them to give money, put the sign up. That was my point. Not that we should be going out and soliciting businesses. This is absolutely not the time.
I don't know if they want to give us a sign. Do we have any problem with us putting it up?
No, if he has one, I'd say absolutely. Anything to help businesses, but I wouldn't ask anyone to do it first.
They have a green and white sign? Why don't we think about it? And why don't you think about it? And we can
Okay.
address it maybe the next meeting.
Okay. Anyone else have anything on that? All right, so the next basic, there's pretty much only 2 sections to the meeting. So the second thing I really wanted to discuss is kind of the nuts and bolts budget that we got going. So obviously with the virus, there's a lot of stuff happening at the town level that is worth discussing. And then kind of as an offshoot to that, how our budget looks, how our revolving fund looks, with having to cancel programming, not having our field fees coming in from our normal organizations. So I think it'd be worthwhile to discuss kind of the bottom line at all different levels, and then kind of a few of the bigger expenditures that we had previously talked about, maybe thinking about if we can still afford those types of things, stuff like that. So, and you kind of have, I know you had reached out to some information I saw. So I'm sure you'd like to share.
Right now, so I don't know if any of you had seen the selectmen's meeting, but in aggregate, the town has been asked to reduce our budget by a little less than $1 million. That's mostly salaries. So there are only about 13 or so of us that are not union employees. I'm one of them, but that's in there. We're all the few of us that are not union employees are town hall employees. So first and foremost, it's a matter of going back to the unions, which are the teachers unions, the police and fire unions, the DPW union, and the clerical unions, and ask them if they will take a 0% increase for next year. That hasn't been done yet, as far as I know. I think they've had preliminary conversations, but I don't think any, I have not heard of any vote taken. So that's the initial thing that will be happening. And then, but we need to decrease the budget. So we go from there. So Recreation needs to decrease our budget by about $4,000. I mean, we're a very small part of the budget, but you know, we'll.
So, and really quickly, because you probably know these finances and these numbers the best. What are some of the low hanging pieces of fruit that you could, without hesitation, say we don't need that, or we could go without that?
For recreation.
And I would also include those would be potential earmark funds that we may had proposed through sponsorships of the anniversary celebration in that sense.
So that's not those things have nothing to do with the budget. The budget is only my salary and half of Kathy's salary and $2,000 of expense money. It's the only operating money there is.
So your gap to budget is $4,000 then.
Yes.
And the ancillary expenses of $2,000. What makes that up? Just out of curiosity.
Licenses for music, licenses and exams for my licenses, my certifications for playground safety things. Now I'm going to go blank. But that usually, I usually, a lot of it, association fees, or the National Park and Rec Association, the Mass Park and Rec Association. A lot of it is that type of thing. I pay the lights, it's about $300 and something, maybe close to $400 for the license for us to use music in all of our programs, that type of thing. So basically it's salary. I mean, it's salaries. So, I mean, I'll take a salary cut. I mean, if that's that's fine. I'm not worried about that.
Speaking of Kathy, did she
Can I,
in the meeting?
excuse me,
She's not able to have connection. She's saying the host is going to let her in soon again.
She keeps losing connection. I'm sorry. I just.
There she
There
is.
she is.
I'm sorry, Kathy. I think I keep hitting admit, but it doesn't.
Oh, she's on mute still.
can I just ask everybody to mute their line if you're not actively talking, because there's some feedback in the background, and I just, I want to give Anne the opportunity to really speak to this, because, from what I was able to pick up, it sounds like, Anne, that the two options on the table is that, one, you could potentially cut those ancillary expenses of $2,000, which still remains a gap, or leaving a gap of $2,000. So I think we obviously need to have a conversation about this, because we need some clarity from a commission's perspective, but then we also need, your perspective too, Anne, and because this affects you and everyone else. So, I would encourage some active dialogue on this matter.
Honestly, if I will probably cut some of that $2,000, and then I'll cut my salary. I'm happy to have a job. I'm happy to have a job. I feel right now, in the middle of a pandemic, asking the fire and police to take a 0% increase just is so much.
Well, it's quite honestly, it's unconscionable across the board too, for teachers too, right? Because what the teachers are doing at this point in time is so far from the outside of the confines of their collective bargaining agreement. It's I mean, good luck to the town to try to negotiate that in goodwill. But I do think we should try to minimize that cut to you, to the best of our abilities, because you still have all the responsibilities that are required of you to do your job, and we all collectively know that your job is not necessarily a 9-to-5 job Monday through Friday.
Well, I appreciate that, but honestly, like I'm good. I will make it work. I will.
So, Will, do we?
And we don't even know. I mean, the advisory board could come back and change things, but if there are decreased revenues and this is what's going to happen in the town, and I'm sorry, I just got a message about my internet being unstable. And I do really appreciate what you're saying. I mean, I really do appreciate it. But I will work to try to decrease the expense account first. And I have to be careful to make sure that I am not paying for anything out of the revolving account that legally I can't. But I should be okay with that. And I always am. I mean, I always make sure. But I'm okay.
Um,
And who knows? I mean, the advisory board could come back and things could change. I mean, the town meeting can change. The town meeting could change things. We just don't know right now. I
Do
know
we
what
have
we've
any
been
indication on and just really quick question on that. Do we have any indication on what the makeup of the town meeting is going to be?
Well,
Is it
of
going
the
to be a virtual
meeting,
town
I'm
meeting?
not sure. I mean, I know that I'm a little concerned that the select persons don't really know what we do or how fields are paid for, because Cece made a comment, and I was actually going to reach out to Kevin because Cece made a comment in the selectmen's meeting about, paying for a fire, making a choice between paying for a fireman or a baseball field, or taking care of a baseball field. So not knowing that baseball fields are not paid for out of tax money. I mean, the mowing of a baseball field is paid for out of DPW mows a baseball field, and they line them once every couple of weeks, but that's not very much.
Allegedly.
I mean,
yeah.
yeah, I know. So, I mean, but it's very minimal compared to what the fees that we collect and what we do to a baseball field. And it's all fee-based. So I was actually going to reach out to Kevin, because I still believe that Kevin is our liaison on the select board. And Kevin, although I haven't spoken to him about it recently, I mean, he's been very supportive. And it does concern me that there are select board people that don't understand how recreation runs, and that we are self-supporting. All our programs are self-supporting, that half of Kathy's salary is not tax-based, that we raise money for it, that maybe they don't know that they don't pay for any Christmas light, on town center, or that every concert is paid for by the fees we raise, and the free events are not tax-based, and anything I use on fields are not tax-based. And
Well, Ann, you're preaching to the choir now, so we understand that.
but maybe they don't.
But they're not here. They're not going to listen. Then I know what you're saying, but we're just trying to.
I know, but maybe I just haven't done a good enough job getting that.
No, I know. I don't think that's the. So I would a few things from my end. So first of all, I wish that all of our public servants kind of had the attitude you had about this, because I know almost no one would be content with the town coming to cut their salary, but I think it's awesome that you care that much about recreation, that you're willingly doing that. So I think you kind of deserve a round of applause.
Well,
And just, for making it go over, kind of, it is what it is. I don't think people.
I don't want to say. I'm not saying it is what it is.
I know, but you
I'm
could.
willing to do what it takes. I mean,
And
not happy with it.
well, no one's happy with it, but I mean, if that's the only option and that you're willing to do it, that's pretty awesome in my book.
I would much rather have a job.
But so the other few things, so addressing this, so the select board, it was brought to my attention that that misconception exists. I know I've spoken with Ann off record about it. I attempted to address it. It didn't go well, apparently. The message didn't hit home. So I guess we have to keep kind of pounding away, and so everyone can understand how our budget actually works. And in that same kind of scope, we've talked a lot about what we can do to help out that end of the budget. So we obviously have a revolving account, which needs to be spent down to, I believe, under 10,000 at the end of the fiscal year. And then that's all the money that we get from fees, programs, so on and so forth. So if we could choose as a board to give that money back to the town. However, the money gets put into free cash, which, as I understand it, will not impact this budget or the next budget. And there's definitely no guarantee that it's going back to recreation. And I would say it's almost certainly not going to go back to recreation.
It will never go to the operating budget. So it will go to free cash once it's certified next fall. And then, free cash is something that when a town, it's a good thing for a town to have. When, bond ratings are based, they look at free cash, it's a good thing. Is, a few $1,000s going to make a difference in that area? It's probably not. But it doesn't go to an operating budget.
So could you theoretically put that into free cash and then propose an amendment or a motion at the town meeting to allocate funding from free cash to the recreation budget? Or is that, I don't know exactly how it works.
You could, you could put something on the warrant, and you are putting it up to the town meeting vote. Sure.
So I would say
You could say to town meeting, you're putting it it's up to town meeting vote.
right.
Sure, you could do that. You could say, we've given $20,000 or $10,000 or $7,000, and we want to do this, and we put the money into free cash with the intent of, hoping to get it back.
So I think that's our only long shot option at kind of helping out. Of course we could just throw money into free cash, but I don't know if that's the best move. I don't think that's a good idea. Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think if we do it without the intentions or making our statement or case for support of why we're doing it, you can unequivocally guarantee that money is not going to come back, because there are some people that don't even understand how this department and the budget of this department works, let alone would they even entertain that. So the goodwill gesture would probably not be returned in or reciprocated. I think your best bet would be, Will, that you would draft a letter of which we would all co-sign. The money would be released. We would be making the case for support that the money would be returned at some point in time, maybe over a 2-year period. But that would be our recommendation as a commission. So it was on record, and the public knew that that was our intention, and we were doing it because we wanted to be upstanding commissioners and employees of the town, but it was not done without strong consideration and debate. And we then left it in the hands of both the selectmen as well as the town administrator to hear our observations. So that would be my recommendation. So there is an actual public record of the letter.
Yeah, I know that if we were to release money, say from the revolving fund, that it's not going to come back. Even if we ask them to, they'll say, "Oh, thank you,"
So
Awesome.
there are
Just
things
no.
that we can use the money for.
Right, and that's my point. So I know basically, so this discussion we had started, Charlie, was based on your inquiry that you had about the PPE and what we could do.
Yeah.
And I liked the idea, and I think we all liked it, and we asked, and they said, you really can't. We can use money on recreation, and then you can give it back to the town. And those are the only two options. And it was kind of a disappointing answer, but.
If you could give it back to the operating budget, that would be very nice.
Yeah, which I'm kind of shocked you can't, but I guess that makes sense in the world of legalese.
I just have a question. Can we do it the other way around? We propose, hey, we'd like to give this, but we don't We don't know that it's going to come back to us, later on when we don't need it, or when you don't need it. And if you can promise us that it's coming back, then we'll give you the money. Or is that, we can't do it that way?
No, it goes to free cash. It goes to free cash, and by law, in order to get money from free cash, you need a town meeting vote. So the town meeting, who's ever at the town meeting gets to decide.
Well, here's another idea. To build off of the idea of the letter that's drafted by Will and signed by the commission. You could outline, if we were to return that money, these are the 4 areas that we would hope the town would consider allocating that money back to. Recreation, 1. 2, education. 3, I don't know, fix the potholes, on Marshall Street. I don't care, on Pond Street, wherever it is. But listing out, maybe 4 or 5 objectives where we would feel comfortable if that money were to be allocated to somewhere else. That's the only other thing that I think, because I do agree in Jess that even if we asked that it is returned to us at some point in time, it's probably not likely to happen, but at least we could then feel good as a commission and from an individual perspective to say, okay, that money didn't come back to us, but it went to the education revolving fund. It went to teachers' professional development. I mean, there are things, certifications of town employees, like continuing ed and professional development for town employees. Whatever it would be, we at least could advise that we would hope it could go to these things because we as a commission feel that way.
So I guess
again, we feel good about the fact that we've done our best. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. So I guess my question is, where does the revolving fund itself stand? And then what are our other options of things? Because we need to spend it down if it's over that level. So what are the other things that we have to spend it on? What choices do we have to make? This would be the $1 million question.
So I did look into this, and so we right now, we still have, we have a couple of expenditures. So interestingly, we have a couple of expenditures that I think are still coming in that could be made out of the field account, which could be made out of the 53D account too. It doesn't, either one, by law, you can support the fields out of the 53D account as well. Not necessarily, there's kind of a fine line, but the work that we just did, you can definitely, the extra work that we just did, you can do it out of the 53D account. So we are probably in the mid 50s, which sounds like a lot, but it's really not. I can hold out about $23,000 for Kathy's salary next year. So if it's, say we're at 55, so we're at 30, and then if we were doing the fireworks, we're at 20, and so we have about 10. And honestly, like that's an easy, 10,000, we could easily do a repair to basketball courts. There's just a lot of things we could easily do with $10,000. I can paint pickleball courts,
But that's based on the assumption that we are going to allocate the money towards the fireworks. That's, so I guess the question that I would
Oh, what do
ask
we
or
do with that
pose
money
is
if we don't do
that
the
you're not
fireworks?
gonna
or
revoke
not
it.
to
You already-
support
You would have to unvote it. You already have voted it. So if you, right.
I'm sorry.
Yep. That's assuming you're going to keep.
Yeah, and I quite honestly, I don't know about my colleagues, but I have a really hard time as an elected official of this town to move forward with allocating money towards fireworks if teachers, police officers, and firefighters are going to be asked to take a 0% increase. And that's also based on the assumption that you are even going to be able to have a gathering of that size in that nature where people could come together and celebrate and watch the fireworks collectively. So if it's not on the agenda, because
No,
my
it is.
apologies,
It's
I
on
don't
the-
have the agenda in front of me.
It's on the agenda.
Oh,
It is.
Okay, because
It's on there.
So what I would say, I'll take a step back. We'll take a step back for a second here. So I put it on the agenda for a reason because I know we've gone back and forth on this, and I see we have Donna Jones with us, who is one of the co-chairs of that committee. So just to give a little bit of background and update on where we are, as you all know, we all co-signed a letter that we sent to the committee and to the board, the select board, asking for a delay in choosing the date, which was September 13th at 1 p.m. For three separate reasons. It was obviously number one being that we have the virus going around, and I think as we get closer to that date, it's increasingly clear that it's just become more infeasible. The second reason was because we had a potential Patriots home game, which is now confirmed. They'll be playing at 1 o'clock at Gillette should the season progress as we hope it does. And then the third reason was for Norfolk youth soccer. So after we sent that letter out, the select board decided to move forward with that date and time, taking our comments on record. So Donna emailed us back, or emailed me back on Tuesday last week. And we are starting to loop in Norfolk Youth Soccer into the conversation. I sent out an email last night, and once we kind of get them on board, we'll kind of turn them over to talk with the committee. And Brendan has been working on that committee as well. So I guess where we stand with that now is making a decision on if we still want to keep, I think it's $9,000 sustaining.
Yeah, it's just under 9,000.
But
Keep that money for the fireworks, and then
just under 10,000.
okay, so that amount, whether we want to continue to spend that and continue to move forward with that, or whether we have reserves about it. So what I would say is, Brandon first, if you have anything you want to offer working on the committee, and then Donna, if you would like to kind of offer your thoughts and your opinion for the committee, feel free, please.
I think my big concern is that the only money that's really been offered has been from the Recreation Commission. No other groups at the last meeting that I was accompanying on had donated any type of funds to help support the event. Obviously now with what we're dealing with the pandemic, I think the last thing on a lot of people's minds is this. And so with that, I'm kind of curious to see if it's something that whenever the next meeting is to reevaluate the dates and possibly even, look at next spring as a possibility, because just let all this dust settle and try to get a better attack on it. Because if we're trying to get funds from a lot of companies, for something in the fall, it's not going to happen, and that's my 2 cents of it. I think initially when it was derived for this date, it was based off of false information, and everyone kept still, bulldozing this thing down because of that date, and all because someone thought that was a date that was free. And I still think that why are we trying to put a square peg in a round hole? Let's just move on and try something different. That's my opinion. Donna? Donna, you're on mute.
Donna Jones, I thought the public comment was only at the beginning. I have been multitasking by watching the planning board also. I did not know that you were on the topic of the parade. Paul is the chair. Far as I know, the Patriots schedule just came out and they have a home game on the 13th at 1 p.m. So I would consider that a non-option date. We do understand there are limitations through the current crisis, and we would not have a parade on the current crisis, during the current crisis. Yes, there is an account, there is cash that has come in, there is cash that has been promised. We've gotten a few people to commit to, yeah, I'd be in the parade in September, but we have no contracts yet. Me personally, not shared by anybody else, is picking a date. How could we do that without stepping on some type of sport in town? Oh, don't do it September, that's the fall soccer. Well, if we wait till May, does it step on another sport or spring soccer?
So Donna, to answer your email, I've reached out to Norfolk Youth Soccer and as soon as they get back to me and say, yeah, we'll be happy to talk about this, I can loop them in with you and Paul, and we can kind of discuss kind of what their thoughts, and they might, if they don't care, then they don't care, to your point. But we wanted to make sure that concern was brought up early on. So in terms of the fireworks, I guess where I stand personally with this is, I think when it's able to happen, it's a good idea. And I think it's still something we should support, but I personally don't see it as something, I don't see it as something that's going to happen this September. Maybe I'm wrong. Hopefully I'm wrong. But I don't necessarily feel like we need to vote to reallocate that money at this time. I don't want to say I don't want to spend it right now, but I also don't want to cut it and say it's absolutely not worth our time, because I think it is. And if we want to give some money back to the town budget, we could. It sounds like we have a little bit of room to be able to do it, but I'm not a fan of parting with our money when there's so much more we can do with it for rec. And
Will, I appreciate your perspective, and I think, to your point, if we want to reinvest those funds into improvements that the greater town community can enjoy or appreciate over the years, I think that is a better suited option. I believe I was under the understanding when we were talking about this allocation of money for fireworks, there were rumblings about the financial insecurities of the town at that time. Those could be not confirmed or denied, but a lot more has come out in light in the recent months and weeks. And I think we really need to take a pause and really strongly consider what our drive is as this commission. And it is to provide an enjoyable experience for the residents of Norfolk, Massachusetts, for our visitors that come into our town, to appreciate the fields that we have and all the recreational facilities and opportunities that we offer them. Nowhere in that charter or that call that we answer when we come to sit on this commission is there are lines in it about providing fireworks or supporting ancillary activities that are important but are not necessary for the goodwill of the community. Again, I will reiterate this, and I would appreciate it to have it written into the minutes. I consciously cannot support even considering having that money be held back or allocated to a future fireworks presentation for the anniversary celebration of the town of Norfolk, Massachusetts, if the fire department, police department, and the teachers are going to be asked to take a 0% pay increase. On top of that, I furthermore can't endorse that if our own director of recreation has to take a $4,000 pay cut in order to continue to have recreation serve to its least abilities of what we're going to be able to do possibly for the remainder of 2020 and into 2021. There are necessary improvements that need to happen. If we choose not to give that money back to the general fund, which I am not supportive unless we write that letter, I say we take that money and we invest it in improving the town. And invest it to improve the experience for the recreation department and those who come to us for that enjoyment. Donna makes a very good point about finding and scheduling a time where it doesn't conflict. There's no good time to host a wedding. There's no good time for graduation. There's no good time for a parade because some people will miss out in that experience. But if we can fix basketball courts where the majority of the population and the town residents will be able to appreciate that, then that's where we need to put that money. Or if it's re-skimming tennis courts, then that needs to be taken into consideration. But I think we have to get back to the basis and the essence of what we're called for and what we're called to do as a commission, and that's to further enhance and move forward the recreation. And I have to be honest with you, as a son of 2 teachers and as a husband of another teacher and friends of many of the police officers in this town, that is bad face if this town holds a parade and has fireworks while we've just said to the people who keep us safe and protect us from a security perspective and educate our kids and are educating our kids virtually that we're going to have fireworks, whether it's in September or it's in December or if it's in May. So my vote, is that we revoke that money, and it is not without painstakingly hard decisions that we have to come to that we can entrust or we can assure that Ann and the rest of the recreational activities are going to be able to move forward in the future. But we need to do right by the entire town. And this parade and the fireworks will serve a small segment of that town. I can't imagine being a teacher in this town or a police officer in this town who has to work the detail for that parade and say to myself, my God, I just took a 0% cost of living increase and had to roll back on benefits, but here we are shooting off fireworks. The optics on it aren't good, and they're not going to be good for a very long time. So if that's the case, let's take the money and reinvest it into our recreational facilities or give it back to the general fund. But I can't in good faith, support the continuation of the parade and the fireworks.
Does anyone else have anything else to add?
I think Charlie makes a good point. Honestly, yeah, it seems like kind of wasted money in a way that's hubris. That's the word that keeps coming up to my mind, is this kind of I agree with Charlie. How about that?
I agree too. Not that I don't have a vote, but certainly the atmosphere of the town has really radically changed. It's a very different place than it was even just a few months ago. So the climate is very different. I will add one small piece. The operating budget this year, as far as expenses, we do have about $1,000 left, and we will not be spending that, and that will be going back to the town. They've asked us not to spend any more money, if at all possible, and that is at all possible. So that will be going back to the town. About $1,200, I think. And part of that is because the events were canceled that were planned, conferences and such.
So we would be splitting the fiscal year. So how much money, so this would not come out of this year's revolving fund, correct? Because we need to spend it down, and then we could start adding funding back to it in the new fiscal year, correct?
I'm sorry, what wouldn't come out of the
Uh,
revolving fund?
So I'm just trying to figure out exactly what our financial position is. So say the fireworks happen as planned in September, we put the money into it as we voted currently, that would be coming out of the revolving account after we spent it down.
If I commit to it, so I haven't placed the order with Atlas. I've called them, but I haven't placed an order with them. If I place an order with them, then I can, so that, because it's a revolving account, the word is not encumber, but if it wasn't a revolving account, the word would be encumber. I could encumber the money. I could say it's dedicated. So but I haven't done it. So it's, but
Okay.
if you want, so I haven't done it, but I could. And I would if that's what you wanted. If you don't undo it, that's what I would be doing. Just so you know, Eric has asked if we'll be discussing the Article 25 field reconstruction. And Eric, that is at the end of the agenda, the CPC updates. Sorry.
All right, so I guess what I would say is maybe we do, maybe not decommit, but maybe commit to not encumbering it right now, and we can keep our options open as to where we can spend the money. Because if we have something where we want, unless we feel like right now we want to take that amount of money and give it back to the town.
Either you have or you haven't.
Correct.
So right now you have. So if you have, I need to take action to do something. And you've got till June 30th.
So yeah, but June 30th is right around the corner,
Right.
And you can't do anything without the commission's vote in that sense. So Ann, let me ask you this question. If the monies were to be revoked and they came back into the account, would you be able to spend those funds to enhance the recreational experience for the residents of Norfolk and our visitors without hesitation? Do you have projects lined up that require your attention at this moment in time?
Things that come to mind are things that we have discussed in the past. I mean, the basketball courts at Pond Street are a mess. They have cracks all over them. They need to be painted. I would love to try to redo the basketball court at Freeman Kennedy, so they would be lined for pickleball. We had talked about that. I haven't gotten quotes for that. I usually have no problem spending money to enhance, things. So, and I work very hard to make sure recreation money goes to a recreation.
So here's my thing on it, and I agree with kind of the statements that have been said, but I don't know how we can place, say, redoing the basketball court or redoing the tennis court or lining the pickleball court above, optic-wise, above a fireworks display. To me, that's all the same bucket. That's recreation. So I think, to me, the decision whether we want to give it to the town so we can help the teachers, firefighters, police, so on and so forth that we discussed. I mean, I feel like we still have the availability of this money based on everything that's said to do some of these other projects with that money. I think that's the bigger conversation at hand, right? I mean,
What?
Yeah, but Will, from an optics perspective,
Yeah.
improvements, enhancements to a house, if you were to use the house analogy, putting on a new roof supersedes the desire to put an in-ground pool in. And you may be afforded a line of credit, or you may have cash in your savings account that provides you the opportunity to do one, not both projects. Well, any investor or real estate agent would say, well, put the new roof on your house. You've got, your roof is 40 years old. The optics on it are way better. You don't want to have this beautiful pool in your backyard, but your roof is caving in. The optics for this is, it's yes, the money is there. I understand that from an accounting perspective. But what's not there is not money across the board in all the various buckets of the town for whatever reason, which we will not get into tonight. And we would probably, even if we did, we wouldn't be able to get down to the bottom of it. But what's being proposed across the board to teachers, police officers, and firefighters, as well as non-unionized employees of the town, is to take on hardship for their family. I don't see how fireworks even fits into that equation. So much so that I think it's like buying a BMW with a credit card.
Yeah.
You can't afford the BMW, but you want to show everybody that everything's okay and you're doing just fine. Well, we're not doing fine. My property taxes continue to go up. The school, I mean, we were fighting over putting a new roof on the school last year at the town meeting and whether or not we were going to use too much copper. I'm sorry. I don't want those guys showing up on my front door saying, why did you vote, or why did fireworks happen? And don't get me wrong, I love fireworks. I think it would be an incredible opportunity for the town to come together. But that's if the town can come together. I have international conferences that are scheduled in 2021 that have already been canceled. I have conferences that are scheduled for November that have already been made virtual. These are unprecedented times, and I think it's silly to earmark or hold back money for a future parade that may or may not ever happen by no one's desire, but circumstances that aren't in our control. But where things do need to be improved are fields or basketball courts or pickleball courts. I would even feel more comfortable just giving it back to the town and saying, look, we are truly, to use that slogan, all in this together. And if that $10,000 means teachers or other people don't have to take pay cuts, well, I can go to sleep at night knowing that I didn't pay for fireworks or I didn't vote for fireworks, and somebody had to take maybe 0.25% less in a across the board pay cut. And that all adds up. And again, I think the optics are terrible. I have a lot of friends, as we probably all do, who are police officers that are going to have to work that detail as well as the firefighters. And I don't know how I would even be able to show my face at that event, knowing that those men and women took a 0% increase in pay and probably took a hit to their premium share on health insurance.
So
But what won't change for every single resident in this town is our expectation for those firefighters and those police officers to be at our house in the event of emergency, not 1 second later. So with that, the optics on it are terrible. Because how can you say that to a firefighter? Run into that burning building, but by the way, you got to pay more for your health insurance. You got to take less pay this year. And oh, by the way, if you're off on Saturday, come by and check out the fireworks. I mean, it's just not good. So I would make a motion to revoke the allocation of the money for the anniversary parades, fireworks, for it to be spent at a future date at the discretion of the commission in partnership with Ann. And I would open that motion up for a second, and so we can bring this to a conclusion and hopefully all go to bed with clear heads and clear consciences tonight.
I'll second it.
Okay, do we have any further discussion on that? Okay, so we can say all in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, so that passes unanimously. So I would say we have some extra cash on hand, so we can kind of consider for our next meeting how we want to deal with that, because we are coming up on June 30th, Charlie, as you pointed out. So whether we want to give some back to the town or whether we want to put it into some other rec improvements. And obviously that gives us a little bit more freedom to explore some of those things you mentioned.
Should we have a
Well,
auxiliary meeting for that because of the time? Or are we
Should,
pressed
but-
for time?
Yeah,
talk about the fireworks. So are you revoking fireworks or not?
I think the
Yes.
motion was
We're revoking.
at this time to pull back.
That's not what I didn't hear that as the motion.
The motion was to revoke the fireworks in its entirety. So the parade
Okay,
committee
I'm
can
sorry.
no
I
longer
must,
depend. Yeah,
I must have missed that.
the parade
Okay,
committee can no longer depend on that allocation from recreation to pay for fireworks.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry. Just want to make sure I understand.
Yep, and that was what I was seconding and voting for. So.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Could
Okay,
I make a comment?
great.
Yeah, go ahead, Donna.
The parade committee was working to fund the parade only. It would be nice if, for me personally, if fireworks were held. I completely understand things have changed. I'm fine with it not happening with the town's current budget strain. So the dinner is completely separate budget. The parade was going to be a separate budget by donation only.
And I think if things improve and we get to a point where maybe we were beforehand, I think it's definitely something that the commission would still be interested in considering. But, obviously through the discussion we've had here tonight, at this point, it's not something we want to put money forward for at this moment in time. It's just, I have to summarize kind of the conversation that was had.
Thank you. A general calendar thing. As far as I know, right now, town meeting is June 9th. Next Tuesday, the selectmen may put that off towards the end of June. Like the second to the last or the last Tuesday. I don't know if anybody's heard anything different.
Say that again, please.
The last vote that I heard the selectmen take was to have town meeting June 9th. Town election, I'm looking for my calendar. Town meeting June 9th and local election June 23rd. Problem with the budget is we don't know what we're getting from the state. So they're saying maybe we should put off the town meeting until June 24th or June 30th.
Right, I think that's what I had heard. But again, I don't know that it's decided.
Right. I understood it as at the meeting on May 19th, they may change the date. I just didn't know how that fit in with your discussion of, let's discuss that at the next Recreation Commission meeting, what money we're going to give back.
It would come from a revolving fund, so we have till the end of the fiscal year on that. I think that's a separate issue.
Thank you.
And I guess, Brendan, to your question, I would propose, we're almost at that point anyway, to have our next meeting relatively soon.
Yeah, I agree.
I really just wanted to talk, like I said, kind of at the start of the meeting, we all had a lot going on, adjusting to new routines. And those of you, I think I'm the only one without kids at home having to adjust to a new routine. I didn't really feel like it was appropriate to drag everyone on to a couple hour Zoom call to talk. But we do have a lot more to discuss in terms of the fields and some of the other projects that we actually can probably spend money on. So I think that's worth discussing relatively soon. So if we want, I can do a quick CPC update, but if we want, while we're on the topic, just come up with another date. That might work for us.
Only because Eric has asked about discussing Article 25. Maybe we can ask Eric what he would like to discuss, or he would like to know.
And I have no problem doing a CPC update. I just didn't know if it was easier to talk about a meeting date now. But yeah, go ahead, Eric.
We could, but we can certainly ask. I mean, Eric's been very patient, so maybe we can at least ask that. Ask Eric.
Okay, so let's see. Eric has asked, has work been completed on the 3 fields to be rebuilt before the scheduled season opening? Would this be an ideal time for the maintenance since all recreation complexes are closed and will not delay teams' planned seasons? If the field reconstruction is delayed, will the voted money cover the future rebuilds? So Eric, to answer your question, yes. We have very happily took advantage of this kind of lull, this unprecedented lull in field usage. In the 3 fields that were scheduled to be revamped have been revamped using the CPC funding, using STS. They look great. And actually, I'm excited at this point to have no one on the fields because they really have time to set and look good. And they really honestly look fantastic. One of the things I do want to discuss at another meeting, not now, is actually a field maintenance person. We've had some preliminary conversations with some people STS recommended, but to kind of keep the fields where they're at, but that's obviously a discussion for a different time.
Can I address some of this? A little bit?
Absolutely.
So I have to just chime in a little bit because I've actually had a lot of fun. I love fields, by the way. So I've very much been enjoying myself. But someone showed me a picture of the snow that hit the field at Field 8, the Little League field. There was snow covering, and then it was totally dry. It dried perfectly. So yes, the fields look good. I did actually see there are a couple of bare spots in the outfield of the Babe Ruth field, and I seeded those, and I have to fill a hole in the infield of the Babe Ruth field at Pond Street, but I might be doing that tomorrow. So I actually like doing that stuff. It's my sort of my therapy. So, but it's been very enjoyable watching the holes get filled and grass coming in, and even the playground field at the Freeman Kennedy Field looks really good, and it's been nice to see.
Yeah, and not to harp on it too much, because again, we can discuss this at length at the next meeting. I believe, including the CPC money, we put well over 100 grand into all the fields just in the last few months, and that included and went out and purchased new bases for the baseball fields that we did not get the full revamp, new home plates, the plate fields that needed it, new pitching rubbers at the places that needed it. STS did a little bit of extra edging work on some of the fields as well. And the last thing that's actually happening at some point is baseball has agreed to paint the dugouts and the snack shack at that field we just revamped, the AAA field over at the Freeman Kennedy School, to match Pond Street. So it'll really be the final touch. It's going to look fantastic. I couldn't be happier, and I hope that the town notices and sees what good work we're all doing here on the Rec Commission. Does anyone else have anything to add to that?
Eric, is that? I think.
Yeah, I think he wrote.
Okay.
Yep. So I think that addresses that. So I guess real quick, I can give a quick CPC meeting. So in the spirit of discussing all things COVID-19, we recently held a not emergency meeting, but a meeting to discuss short-term rental housing and short-term rental assistance in town. So obviously, a lot of things have been done on the state level to not forgive, but delay the payments of rent for a lot of folks in the short term, which is excellent. But as the world has it, that rent's not going to be going anywhere. It's going to be owed at some point in the future. So what we did is we stepped in and we created the start of a short-term rental assistance program for the town using the CPC funds, which the state determined to be an allowable use. It was limited to Norfolk residents only. I think the details are still going to be worked out by Sue Jacobson and some of those folks over at Affordable Housing. But I did think it was worthwhile mentioning that we're putting some money back into the folks in town that might need some help as we continue to go through this crisis. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but that's kind of the top of the trees overview. Okay, so does anyone else have anything to add for this meeting? They can't wait till next time? All right, so what do
Thank
we
you, everyone.
for our next meeting? I could send out an email if that's easier, or if we want to just do it now.
If you got a date, let us have it, and we'll see if we can all make it.
What about, what if we say maybe 2 weeks? Maybe we do May 26th, same time?
Sure.
It's fine with me.
All right, so let's call it May 26th, 7 p.m. Back here.
That's good.
It's a bad time.
All right,
All right.
all right, thanks, guys. Stay safe, stay healthy, okay?
Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
So much,
Hold on,
guys. Take care.
Hold on, actually, I need a motion.
Oh.
During the meeting.
I motion to dismiss.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned at 8:41 p.m. Stay safe, everyone.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks so much, guys. Bye-bye.
As to why things are the way they are. So obviously, as you guys know, tennis courts are open.
Got it, Kathy?
Yep.
Okay. All right, I don't know why I've never used this camera on this phone, on this computer, so I don't even know if it works.
I never saw you, but I didn't see Brendan or Charlie also. So
So I saw Brendan and Charlie.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I could have, I just enough just to keep, I kept getting cut out. So I'm hoping that there was something that's saying recorded. So I'm hoping that I can get a recording of it.
You should be. I recorded it. So
Okay,
it's still,
great.
and it's still recording. So
Right.
I'm gonna sign off. Okay.